So as promised, this is a video where we're going to go over an actual case study. So Jerry and Rita, that's not their real names, but they did give us permission to use their data so that you can see a live case and exactly how we've been able to use some of the strategies that we've been talking about in the prior videos, and you can see exactly how it might work and help you. So Jerry's 67, Rita's 64. They've been retired for 4 years. He has four happily married children, 10 grandchildren. They've got a house up north, and they've got a condo in Florida. And they've basically done traditional estate planning. So most people think just because they have some legal documents that their wealth plan is done. And quite honestly, that's not wealth planning. It's a part of it, but it's not the entire plan. And so one of the things we need to do is blow the lid off some of the lies that have been out there. A lot of the financial media to sell magazines and airtime has promoted a bunch of lies, and we want to try to get to the truth. And one of the lies that comes out is that people can retire on 80% of the income that they were making when they were working. And so what I want to explain to you, if you think about this, when you're working, what day of the week do you tend to spend most of the money? And it's usually Saturday because that's the day you're off and you have time to be able to spend the money. Well, guess what? When you're retired, every day is Saturday. So the whole idea here is that I believe you need to make or have 120% of the income you were earning when you were working in retirement so that you would have more freedom. We're not looking to get less freedom. If you're working and saving money for your future retirement, you want to be in a position where you can do things. What are you going to cut back on? You now have time, and you're not going to use the money. So I believe you need 20% more. As we do the planning, we want to find clarity. It's one of the things that is most important. So the first thing you want to do is figure out what it is you want. What's your ideal picture of your financial future? What do you have, and what are some of the side effects and interactions of the assets that you have? And then what options do you have? Can we create a blueprint that makes things better? So a lot of people think we just set goals. I don't think that's the way to start. I believe you have to have a vision, you have to develop priorities, and then you can set goals. So what are some of the goals? Well, this is what Rita and Jerry came up with. And what I want to focus on is the $160,000 for grandchildren. You see, what do you think that was for? Well, they wanted to help educate their grandkids. And a lot of kids today coming out of school come out with lots of debt, and they didn't want their grandkids to have that. And quite honestly, they had some help along the way when they went to school, and they wanted to reach out to their kids. Notice also that they didn't want to pay any taxes. Are you shocked by that? So we have to first test their wealth engine. Is this engine that they have, is it a souped up Formula One race car, or is it like my first car? So the first thing we want to do is figure out, is there a surplus? And wouldn't it be important to know if you had a surplus? So we take your lifestyle line and run it across your cash flow to see if there's surplus. And lo and behold, we found that there was a surplus. So now we have to stress their legacy to look at what's going on in their situation. And what we looked at is that there's $420,000 going to the tax man. Now, I want you to know, Jerry was pretty upset by this. You know, he said to me, Sal, I've paid income taxes all along to accumulate these assets. I've paid capital gains taxes every time I sold an appreciated asset. I paid real estate taxes, sales taxes, and my God, you're telling me when I die, Rita and I pass away, that the government's going to get another $420,000. He couldn't believe it. So he had some concerns, and so did Rita. They didn't want to lose control over their assets. They wanted to have, they were concerned about limited flexibility in whatever planning they did. And they also wanted to make sure that their personal wishes were not made public. And then also to avoid probate delay, which can happen today, especially in states that have some estate tax. There could be tax waiver delays and audit delays and so on and so forth, and just administrative delays. Well, one strategy was to talk about protecting personal decision-making. By the way, this has nothing to do with taxes. And some of you may remember Groucho Marx. He was an entertainer many years ago. And the last 5 years of his life, his nieces and nephews thought he was starting to lose it. And he started to To think, they felt that he was losing it, and so they took him to court, and the judge agreed with that decision. And so for the last 5 years of Groucho's life, his nieces and nephews made all his financial decisions. So I don't know about you, but if I would suddenly lose it, and by the way, it could happen like that, I would prefer to pick and select the person or persons that were going to make financial decisions for me. So what do? Well, we should create a living trust. That's a way in which you can hold the assets so that the assets are confidential, that the general public doesn't know about it, and it's very smooth transition. We don't have to worry about going through probate. We also want to have a pour-over will in case we forget to put assets or title them in a living trust. We want to have a power of attorney for financial decisions in case we're incapable. We also want to have a healthcare power in case we're in a position where we can't make health decisions for ourselves. And then we should have a living will, which gives the healthcare power direction as to what it is we want to do. The other concern was a lack of reliable income and this problem with the IRA ticking tax bomb. And today, most people don't realize this, but if you've got an IRA, let's say you had $1 million, and this is exactly what Rita and Jerry had, and if you open that door, all of a sudden a ticking time bomb takes place, and people don't realize this, and so it's a devastating thing. So what do? Well, we wanted to create some predictable retirement income. We wanted to rescue the IRA ticking tax bomb. We also wanted to convert their IRA to tax-free assets for Rita and the children and grandchildren, and maybe even the great-grandchildren. And so what we did is we transferred half of the IRA to a guaranteed lifetime retirement income. And then what we did is that generated a $40,000 annual income, money that they weren't getting now. And we took a portion of that, $12,000, and put it into a tax-free replacement trust. So at the end of the day, when Jerry dies, $500,000 of the $1 million goes to Rita, completely income tax and estate tax free. We also had concerns about a single stock with high capital gain. Low income paying stock. In fact, the stock that Jerry had, he had inherited from his dad, and it was a good stock at the beginning. He didn't want to sell it for sentimental reasons, and he kept reinvesting the dividends and kept buying more and more shares, and it got bigger and bigger. And now the stock isn't as good as it used to be, and is really not paying any dividends. And so Rita and Jerry could certainly use more income. But they were concerned about the taxes on capital gain. If they had sold that stock, there'd be a problem. And they were also concerned about diversification. When you have most of your assets in one stock, it can be a big risk factor if something happens to that company. So what we did is we took that $1 million of appreciated stock and we transferred it to a gains avoidance trust. And we knew that if we sold it, we would lose a substantial amount of capital. This is locked up capital. So what we did is we said, let's increase their income, avoid the capital gains tax, get some diversification, create an income tax deduction that they can't outlive. And by doing that, we transfer it to this gains avoidance trust that I mentioned. And by doing that, we avoid the capital gains tax, and we put ourselves in a position where we're able to free up the capital gain, at least currently, and then get us an income tax deduction and an income that we cannot outlive. And in their case, it was a $340,000 income tax deduction. Jerry pulled out one of his calculators and quickly figured out how much income tax that would save him. And we also were able to generate a $50,000 of additional income that they didn't have for themselves at this point. And so how many would love to have a $50,000 raise? Wouldn't that be good? Just by doing some planning. And at the end of the day, this would go to their alma mater, and that's what they wanted. Other concerns they had was they wanted to leave a legacy to their children and grandchildren. And they wanted to make sure that the money wasn't a disincentive, that we weren't going to create a whole bunch of Paris Hiltons here. And they wanted to protect the money from the wealth predators that I talked about when I talked to you about the wealth engine. And so we wanted to create an incentive legacy to children and grandchildren, protect from the four predators, and maintain family unity. So what we did is we took excess cash flow, we transferred that to an estate tax-free family incentive trust. And Rita said, well, how long has one of those trusts been around? And I said, well, It's actually been around for more than 100 years. So this is not something that some attorney in California dreamed up last week. This has been around on the books in the IRS tax code for over 100 years. And what's nice about this is we got this asset on the other side of the tax wall for purposes of estate and transfer tax purposes, but more importantly, we were able to make Rita an income beneficiary, so she had some control and access to this trust. So that made her very comfortable. And at the end of the day, it was really for the children, grandchildren, maybe even great-grandchildren. Other concerns they had was that they had a house that no one wanted. You see, they made the mistake of sending their children out of state to school. None of them came back, and so it would be a burden for them to try to sell this house. No one really would want it. They're not living in the state that they're currently living in. And they're paying too much income tax now, and Jerry wanted some relief because basically turning into one of those perfect taxpayers where kids are out of the house, mortgage is paid off, and the required minimum distribution from his IRA was forcing him into a higher and higher tax bracket. So he was concerned about that. So one strategy would be to create an income tax deduction for doing something after you're gone, make a charitable gift only when you pass away. And so we took the house, we transferred it, we signed a piece of paper that said, after both you and Jerry pass away, we can leave the house to charity. And by doing that, we would get a significant income tax deduction. In their case, it was over $300,000. And what's really nice about this is that at the end of the day, the house would go to their alma mater, which is what they wanted. Now, there's a hidden estate tax on your IRAs that would be subject to children and grandchildren if you left your asset to them. So we call those red assets. Those are 401k plans or retirement pensions, IRAs, annuities, those kinds of things get hit pretty heavily. They get hit with income tax that you haven't paid. They get hit with potentially a state estate tax if the state has an estate tax. And also, if your assets are large enough, could be subject to federal estate tax. So what we did is we transferred that to a family-controlled charity, and some of the money went outright to their alma mater. And what that did is it eliminated all the tax on the retirement assets. It's really a fantastic move because what this enables you to do is to take a highly taxed asset and remove all the taxes and get tremendous leverage for charitable causes. And that's exactly what we did here. So when we look at the lifestyle and legacy results, remember when we started, they had a certain amount of income. We were able to get them a 20% increase in their income. And that's really terrific. And most people would love to get a 20% raise just by doing some planning. And remember, after the family passed away, after Jerry and Rita passed away, the family's going to get $3.8 million of their estate, and $420,000 was going to the government, and $0 was going to charity. After we had done the planning, $4.3 million was going to the family. So do you think the kids and the grandkids were unhappy with this new plan? I don't think so. And $0 was going to the government, and we had almost $2 million going to charity. How many of you out there listening to this would love to have a plan like that? And it's doable. It's possible. So what do we do? At the end of the day, $0 to the government, 100% to family, 40% to charity. Now, some of you mathematicians may be saying, oh, wait a minute, you can't have more than 100%. Well, if you're strictly looking at arithmetic, you're absolutely right. But this has to do with tax savings, creating additional income. We took some of that money, reinvested it, and we built and made the pie bigger. We made it 40% bigger, so we were able to do this and accomplish it. And we were able to achieve more control, peace of mind, greater freedom, more income for themselves, more for their heirs, and they were able to transition their taxes to their alma mater. More importantly, we gained the clarity and confidence to take action now, and so that we're enjoying greater peace, freedom, and joy. So, now here's the thing. When you think about this, and I thought about after listening, if I was sitting listening to this video, what would I want? And I thought about this, and I thought, well, what I would want is an opportunity to spend 15 minutes on the phone in a conversation with the presenter, because I might have some specific questions that are personal to me that I need some answers to. So I thought that would be appropriate. So we reserve some slots for those folks that are listening to this video. And if you want one of those slots, just click the button on the bottom, and someone from my team will reach out to you and schedule a no obligation, no pressure, nothing you can buy, opportunity to have a phone conversation with me, answer any questions. And I promise you one thing. you will get at least one idea that will help your family situation or tell you one thing that you might be doing wrong to avoid significant costs and transfers that may be taking place in your situation. So click the button at the bottom, and I look forward to talking to you.